In the brutal world of 1950s football, a single shoulder could end a play, and sometimes a career. Hardy Brown, the linebacker who knocked players out cold, perfected a right shoulder shock that lifted runners' chins, sent helmets spinning, and left bodies crumpled. He scared opponents so badly that legends swore he hid metal in his pads. George Hollis had them inspected, but all they found was violence honed to an art. The Rams offered a $500 bounty to take him down. Even Hall of Famers like Y.A. Tittle and Art Donovan called him the toughest, the most feared. What drove football's boogeyman to unleash this carnage, and what did it ultimately cost? Bodies snapped backward, heads jerked skyward. Hardy Brown's right shoulder detonated under a runner's chin, and the field turned into a crash site. The moment he coiled and launched, the air changed. Ball carriers braced, linemen flinched, and helmets shot free like shrapnel. One strike sent a halfback's helmet spinning 10 yards, face still painted with shock. Another left a fullback flat, eyes rolling before he even hit the ground. The crowd's gasp always came a half-second late, trailing the thud of Brown's shoulder on bone. Trainers sprinted before a whistle blew. His hit wasn't a wrap or a drag down, it was a jolt. A boxer's uppercut delivered at full sprint. Opponents talked about the humper, that crouch, the sudden spring, the shoulder rising like a piston. The mechanics were brutal and exact. Brown dropped his center of gravity, timed the runner's stride, then drove upward, shoulder first, into the exposed jaw. With no face masks to shield them, runners went limp or sprawled, arms out, before they knew what hit them. The violence wasn't wild or reckless. It was practiced, repeatable, almost cold. In a league where most tackles stopped a play, Brown's shot could end a game. Trainers dragged men to the sideline, helmets dangling from their hands, while Brown stood over the wreckage, already resetting for the next snap. He didn't need tricks, didn't need metal hidden in his pads. The shoulder was enough. Every team learned, you didn't just run at Hardy Brown, you risked being erased. George Hollis didn't trust it. The Bears' legendary coach once sent an official into the 49ers locker room before kickoff, demanding Hardy Brown strip down to his pads. The search turned up nothing. No metal, no tricks, just the same battered gear every other linebacker wore. But on the field, it was a different story. Brown's reputation had become so notorious that the Los Angeles Rams pooled together a $500 bounty, cash on the line for anyone who could knock him out of the game. Not a single player collected. Rams linemen abandoned their assignments, hunting Brown on special teams, only to end up sprawled on the turf themselves. Opponents whispered about the shoulder, about bodies left dazed and limp. Y.A. Tittle, who shared a locker room with Brown, called him pound for pound, inch for inch, the toughest football player I ever met. Art Donovan, a Hall of Fame tackle who faced Brown, remembered the hits. He was like a snake uncoiling. He'd get under your chin and bang, you'd be seeing stars. Ball carriers looked for Hardy rather than an opening coming around that corner. No one else in the league drew this kind of attention. Bounties, inspections, entire game plans rewritten to avoid one man's hit. Brown wasn't just a player anymore. He was the shadow in every huddle, the reason backs hesitated before the snap. Even in a league built on violence, his presence changed everything. The fear didn't fade after the whistle. It followed teams back to the locker room, bruises blooming where his shoulder had landed. By the 1950s, a shoulder to the jaw was just football. Officials worried about late hits, not where a tackler landed his blow. Brown's upward strike, shoulder first, chin high, fit right in. The league had no face mask requirement. The first face mask penalty wouldn't hit the rulebook until 1962. Even then, it only covered grabbing, not smashing. For decades, the NFL taught defenders to lead with the shoulder, heads turned aside. Brown took that to its violent edge, but he wasn't breaking any rule. That changed as the game's priorities shifted. Spearing, using the helmet as a weapon, was banned in 1976. By the mid-1990s, helmet-to-helmet contact drew a flag. In 2010, the NFL explicitly outlawed blows to the head with helmet, forearm, or shoulder against a defenseless player. Now, the hit that once made Brown a legend would bring a 15-yard penalty, a fine, maybe even ejection. The same move that drew cheers in the 50s draws a whistle today. At 4 years old, Hardy Brown watched his father gunned down in cold blood. 4 months later, another killing unfolded in front of him, a cycle of violence that ripped his family apart. The Texas Masonic Home became his world, a Spartan orphanage where discipline came hard and football was the only escape. Brown learned to fight for everything. The field wasn't just a place to play, it was a place to survive. He became one of the Mighty Mites, a team of orphans who hit harder than anyone else in Texas. War called next. Brown enlisted as a Marine Paramarine in World War II, trading the gridiron for the Pacific, where fearlessness was the only currency that mattered. Years later, the body that once delivered knockout blows betrayed him. The same right shoulder that dropped men on Sundays locked up with arthritis. He could barely lift his arm. Dementia crept in, memories faded, and by 1991, Hardy Brown died in a Stockton nursing home, his legend sealed, but the cost clear. The violence that made him famous left a toll no one could see from the stands. In the 1952 season alone, Hardy Brown's right shoulder knocked out more players than some teams lost in a year. Official inspection of his pads found no hidden metal, only technique honed from the Texas Masonic Home to the front lines of World War II. Brown's hit, once legal, is now banned by NFL targeting rules. Today, it would draw immediate ejection. Decades after his last game, the toll was clear. Dementia, arthritis, and a shoulder so damaged he could barely lift it. No record survives of exactly how many careers his blows altered or how much his early trauma shaped his fearlessness. But the evidence remains. Brown's legacy forced a reckoning with violence in football. He is remembered as both a hero to old-school fans and a warning in league safety studies. The story of Hardy Brown is written in bruises and rule books, proof that the cost of greatness changed how the game is played.